GKW, welcome to another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. I'm Gabe Nunso from ESPN Milwaukee. We've got the band back together this week from ESPN West Palm. We get him right before he heads up to Brooklyn to watch his FAU Owls, Brian Rowitz, and from ESPN 1000 in Chicago, he is Jonathan Hood. All right, boys, it feels like we're in a sports mode here with all these things going on in professional wrestling. And, oh, by the way, NCAA tournament and all these other things going on in the sporting world. But we begin with WrestleMania. 10 matches currently announced. What match are you looking forward to the most for WrestleMania 40?
Well, I'd like to go with chalk like I am in the NCAA tournament. So UConn is one of the favorites, and I would say that Cody and Roman is the favorite to be able to be night 2 of WrestleMania. That's going with chalk. However, there's something to be said about the women and Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. With Rhea Ripley, guys, we've talked so much about Rhea Ripley and how impressed we are with her and her run. Some long title runs in the Triple H administration, but when it comes to Rhea Ripley against Becky Lynch feels fresh to me because of all the matches that Becky's had. I mean, recently with Nia Jax. We know that the man matters in the WWE, but what happens in this match? I mean, Brian, I don't think it's just a fait accompli that Rhea Ripley wins the match. I'm very intrigued on how the match goes and who gets over.
Yeah, I think for both women's title matches, you can make the case that it can go either way. Like, Bayley winning seems to make sense, but I could justify Io winning, and, Bayley still has to do that chase. I agree with Rhea and Becky being one of the stars. For me, though, I think it's when you talk about Roman Cody, it's not really hooking me right now. Like, you guys talked about Cody Rock is awesome and the bloodline stuff, but Roman Cody, I mean, it'll be fine. No?
Yeah, so if I'm going with a chalk like men's world championship, I'm certainly more intrigued by Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins. Like, that one's got me more. And a lot of that has to do with Drew. I mean, Drew it's crazy to say when you think about like the entirety of Drew McIntyre's career and the success he's had in WWE, especially the second run that he's had. And this is somebody who main evented. Yes, I know it was the pandemic WrestleMania, inside the Thunderdome, whatever, but he's on the best run of his WWE career. Like, his character work, in-ring, social media, everything. Like, he is just absolutely killing it right now. His new WrestleMania shirt is awesome with the checklist on the back. I guess I don't know if that's foreshadowing or if it's just going to be a shirt that's completely worthless after WrestleMania because they have, the winning the world championship thing on the back of that. But
if I'm picking them, some of the tag team shirts they make and they break them up 2 weeks later, I mean, they don't care about that.
That's very true. Yeah. But look, I am really looking forward to that match. And that, I mean, it very well could be a squash match. Like, they might do a squash depending upon what they do with Rollins and Cody versus the Bloodline night 1. Maybe Rollins gets beat up. Who knows? But man, I am really looking forward to Drew McIntyre, and I am hoping he gets to stand tall with that world championship at the end of his match, whenever it happens on night 2.
When it comes to McIntyre and Seth Rollins, as we're talking about, the storyline that we thought coming in, guys, was like, well, Seth Rollins, this is going to be the only match that he can participate in because of that bad wheel. Then this whole thing of him being cleared, we still don't even know what that means. That might be a no-sell by him where he says, oh, I'm cleared. But again, he's got to go through 2 matches at WrestleMania. So, I mean, for me, it just seems if I was going to pick an obvious winner, for me, it would be Drew McIntyre unless there's some kind of swerve that's happening where Seth – it's a miracle. It's a miracle, where all of a sudden now Seth can wrestle moving forward after WrestleMania. I just think that McIntyre is going to be able to win this. And by the way, it's deserved. He's doing some of the best work in his career because we already know he can wrestle, but what's the personality? Personality's always been stoic, strong guy. Now there's some impersonations in there. It's a little fun from Drew McIntyre as a little troll. So I think he's deserving of being able to be the first ever troll world heavyweight champion in WWE.
Wouldn't be the first time that we had a miracle with Seth Rollins in or around WrestleMania. I don't know if you remember the non-sanctioned match because he couldn't get cleared by the doctors against Triple H. And then suddenly, Raw after WrestleMania, he's cleared. He's participating in tag team matches in the Raw after WrestleMania. It was a miracle that Seth Rollins recovered and could wrestle.
The other thing with Drew, though, is we still have to consider the contract status. Like, we can all assume he's going to resign, but if he hasn't, I don't think you can put the belt on him at Mania.
Well, then you just have Senior Money in the Bank cash in. Like you've done the storytelling. You've done the storytelling. He has to win at this point because even though to Seth's face, he's like, "Hey, by the way, I'm your most important match because you love that championship," and Seth's like, nah. Like Seth to his face, basically, is like, you're night 2. I'll worry about you when I get to night 2, which again, great storytelling and some foreshadowing, especially with that. So with all of that, like Seth Rollins isn't invincible. Like the story they're telling is Seth Rollins is indeed, I mean, he's got a bad back. He's got a bad knee. He's got a couple different things going on with that knee. He's got to wrestle the first night. Like there's just no way I think you can have Seth Rollins win this match. Otherwise, like, honestly, if he wins that match, for me, his character becomes a little more boring because then it's just like, oh, okay, he's just going to win every time he's out there because he's invincible. And that's not what makes, to me, a lot of professional wrestlers interesting.
This guy right here.
What?
This guy with his conspiracy theories.
I mean, we haven't heard anything.
It's unbelievable. But you know what? How about this? Drew McIntyre, because he's doing great work, AEW wouldn't know what to do with a Drew McIntyre. Or even, by the way, we can throw a Seth Rollins in there as well, by the way, because we don't know his contract status for the future. Like, those guys jumping ship to AEW right now. Could you imagine, Drew McIntyre against Okada?
Uh-huh.
At some point, maybe down the line when Okada is in WWE. But, I mean, it's
Drew versus Orange at All In at Wembley? Come on, I'm in.
Oh, God.
Drew versus the Murder Hawk Monster. Drew versus Wardlow. Drew versus...
No. I am not ready for that. I will leave. There's no reason. Can I just be able to enjoy my WWE over here, my AEW over there? I mean, that's all I want. This guy with the conspiracy theory thinking that Drew McIntyre, is he going to... Tell us this. Let's break the internet. Is he winning the championship and then jumping over the barrier, blowing a kiss to Triple H and leaving to go to AEW, putting his title in his refrigerator?
I mean, if he drops it in a garbage can on Dynamite, that would get Tony that million he's always looking for. That'd be a big deal.
Oh, man, and the 3,000 people will be roaring.
But that's the thing, like, that match, like, on paper, like, I'm excited about it from a wrestling standpoint. Until you said it, Gabe, I didn't consider a squash, but a squash almost makes the most sense now. Like, you play out that Rollins is so hurt, and then he gets beat down by the Bloodline the night prior. That one going under 5 minutes really isn't that crazy, which is sad to say.
Oh, so you think that should lead night 2? Because that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first match, and we don't know if we don't know after last night's beatdown if Rollins is ready to go. And there's Drew McIntyre trolling, going, back and forth. Bell rings, and then 1, 2, 3.
I mean, it was like Sheamus and Bryan, the way they did that title match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, foreshadowing a little bit. We'll see if it actually is foreshadowing or just trash talk, but foreshadowing of Drew McIntyre saying, I don't care if I have to drag your lifeless body to the ring. I am pinning your shoulders to this mat, and I am winning this championship at WrestleMania. I feel like Drew is just hitting every single note. It's just there's no misses for him right now. Yeah. Whereas, even, with Bloodline and Cody and Rock, like, there are some missteps. It's not like Drew's the hottest thing for WWE going in from like a pure wrestling standpoint. I mean, you're never going to top The Rock, right? Because The Rock appeals to so many different people. But there have just been no missteps in this climb to me for Drew McIntyre.
And even the stuff about them, like, pointing out things that we as wrestling fans see that in WWE world typically we have to ignore. Like Rollins, I think it was this week, where he's like, hey, the Bloodline had to help you win matches. Like, pointing stuff out like that, like, it just adds to the character. And when you put this current day Drew up against the old face Drew of, hey, let's count down and do the Claymore, it is night and day what he's doing right now. And I agree, he deserves a title at Mania.
But I also love how in his own mind, he's still a babyface and does the 3-2-1 with the Claymore. Sure. Again, it's just that little nuance of the character, but it's fantastic because in his mind, no, I'm not a bad guy. I'm just telling the truth. If you can't handle me telling the truth, that's on you. That doesn't make me the heel. That doesn't make me the bad guy.
That's what's so funny about the heel character, Gabe. Like, heels believe that they're baby faces. They're just misunderstood. Because Drew's laid out all the stuff, right? All the stuff's just like, hey, man, I was a pandemic champion. Nobody's there for me. I never got my shot, never got my shot. And so there's some sympathy there. But then when you start changing your personality, now it becomes annoying. Now you're just always yelling and always complaining about your spot, your status. And now you become like this heel. And I just think that's great. I'm playing out the scenario in my mind about in that tag match with Cody and Seth against Roman and Rock, where both of those guys are working on Seth Rollins and working on that leg, and then you're waiting for that hot tag from Cody. You're just waiting for it. Like Seth's getting beat up for like 15 minutes straight, and then Cody gets the hot tag. And then somehow, some way, comes back around to Seth, and then Seth, because of that leg, could not hold up, and he loses the match on night 1, and that carries over to night 2, and then so 2 losses for Rollins at WrestleMania. I'm sure that's maybe not what he wants, but I think that's best for the story.
Yeah, I agree. And even that tag match, like I could go either way on how that's going to go. I mean, there's obviously the uncertainty of whether or not The Rock can go. Like we're assuming he'll be okay, and how much they protect him will be interesting. But what he does in the ring will be interesting, and then who wins, to play in the night 2. It's a fun card they're putting together right now.
It really is. And I did not see triple threat for Logan Paul, Randy Orton, Kevin Owens coming. But honestly, like maybe that's best just to be able to feature all 3 of those. We're going to see some crazy stuff there. That's going to be a lot of fun. The way that they really
title match, like that's going to deliver. So as now we have Judgment Day, DIY, New Day, Awesome Truth. There are still spots for 2 more teams. A lot of rumors of the Hardys' contract status possibly being up in the air right now. So maybe that is their annual spot.
I love the fact that you have Randy Orton and Kevin Owens, and you actually still keep the initials RKO. Randall Keith Orton becomes Randy Kevin Owens. The RKO label is still there. That's what's so fun. I thought that they were going to be connected as a tag team. Those 2 will go after each other, Orton and Owens, and somehow Logan Paul will slip out and be able to win that and retain his championship, I believe.
And that'll be a good match also. Like we know what Logan Paul can do in the ring, and on that stage, we know he's going to deliver.
Yeah, 100%. 100% that is going to deliver. So I mean, I honestly like the only meh match so far that they've put out there, and I think there's 10 out there right now. Maybe it picks up a little bit of steam, but AJ Styles versus LA Knight is the only one where it's like, okay, I really don't care about this. Like they haven't done a great job of telling this story. I know AJ is, trying to be fiery and trying to bring all these different things. But with the lack of LA Knight's TV time recently, it's been hard to be invested in that. It seems like that feud is the one that is maybe been undercut the most by The Rock and Bloodline going over their allotted TV time.
The way this battle has gone back and forth between the 2, Gabe, Brian, it's how Triple H sees LA Knight, and that's the middle of the card. Yeah, this is a mid-card feud, and that's what it is. And with AJ Styles, it's a little murky because I thought that after Undertaker, a little bit of a baby face, still with the OC, kind of like lingering a little bit, and so it's got kind of like, to me, it's AJ Styles being a heel against his babyface LA Knight, and it seems even to me. If this was just a cold match, it would deliver. It'd be a good match, but the way it's been built, it feels mid-card because that's how they look at LA Knight as mid-card, and that's exactly where he is.
There's nothing to care about there, and I believe it was Meltzer that pointed out the LA Knight thing is taking a hit because, we've heard a lot of like, oh, you're a ripoff of The Rock. When The Rock's on the same show, and then you also roll LA Knight out there, you're like, I don't need the Rock light right now. Like I got the real thing. Like
no. It ended when I said it was going to end on the show. There was no need to book him in Saudi.
Correct.
As soon as he lost to and we knew he was going to lose to Roman. That match should have never been booked. It cut his legs off, and as soon as that happened, all of a sudden LA Knight was not his anymore.
Yeah, that was it. That was the end of it, and that's where we are right now.
Speaking of The Rock, how did you guys feel about The Rock concert on Friday night?
Yep, always a fan of The Rock singing.
I like the fact that he brought in real musicians too. Yeah. Like I thought he nailed it. Like I just thought he had the visuals, like he was an audio visual presentation as well. Made fun of himself with the fanny pack. Like I just thought he blurred the lines so good because again, even though he's heel Rock and he keeps, cutting these social media promos about how he's the cool heel and all, like nobody actually wants to boo The Rock.
Right.
Like even when he made fun of John Morant, like people were like, oh, but then they laughed at the very next line. Like they just don't want to boo The Rock wherever he goes. And I thought, again, the Rock concerts, I'm glad they brought it back. I thought he knocked it out of the park.
And shout out to the Moana line at the end. I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, yeah. That was tremendous.
Yes. So when I watched that, obviously we enjoyed it because it's The Rock.
Yeah.
He didn't have to have the guitar. He already had the guy with the harmonica. He didn't need to have it. He just did the singing. He just did the lines, right? But what that told me is that there are two Rocks. That's what I think. I think it's The Rock that does business with the family, and he's totally anti Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, and he's doing it for the bloodline. But everything else is babyface Rock, every bit of it. Now think about it. He's running down towns, night after night, every time he's on television. But somehow, some way, he gets to Memphis and goes, oh, remember when I was Flex Cavana? Remember when I was on Channel 5 in Memphis? Yeah, okay. And this is where I start. So I can't run down Memphis because this is home. Bullshit. It ain't home. That ain't home.
So I think LA, Miami,
Yes.
Memphis. We're just adding up like the lists of places that are home for The Rock.
I've been in person plenty of times and heard The Rock use that home line down here in South Florida. Like, wait a minute now.
He's home in Miami. I could have swore his old man was in Allentown, Pennsylvania for TVs. He was in Portland wrestling, so is Portland home too? Is Allentown, Pennsylvania, is that home too? Like wherever Rocky was in the territory, that's where Rock was. So let me just say, here's a guy clearly that does not want to be booed. But I see two Rocks. The Rock that's on social media, the guy that is absolutely tearing up Cody Rhodes. I mean, classic stuff you can't say on TV, he's doing on social media. Then you get PG Rock in some ways, PG-13 Rock.
PG-13 Rock.
Yes, PG-13 Rock, and being able to do what he's doing on TV. To me, as far as business, there is The Rock that's really anti-Cody, going after his mom and everything else, going after Seth Rollins and all that. But all the other time, The Rock that we saw in Memphis, that's the guy that he was when we first saw him in January. That's the guy that he wants to be, but he has to be this character because of the bloodline.
And also to the reports of wrestlers being upset with The Rock and how he's able to cross that line, he's able to curse on social. Be as entertaining as The Rock, and then you get some of those liberties where you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, like, come on, man. Like, everybody knows that there are different sets of rules for different people. If you're Dwayne Johnson and you show up to WWE, like, guess what? Rules don't apply. He goes over his TV time. He gets to do all these things because, well, I mean, he was part of this. He built it up, left, wants to come back. People are loving it. His TV segments are the ones that are most rated. So if you're ticked off about that, like this is just the way the world works, man. Like, it works in radio. Like, the rules for my co-hosts are different than the rules for me. And I'm fine with it. That's the way it is. Chewy can do things on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy that I can't do. And that's the way it should be.
Who has that upper hand on this show? I don't
I don't think we can do any of the things that he does. Again, anytime he swears on the show, I get yelled at. So that's the way it works.
Assume on this show it's you because you hit teammates, you slapped them. So I don't want any piece of you. So that's fine.
Stay tuned. I may be slapping, or the same teammate may be getting slapped again here coming up soon. It's about that time of year.
What the hell is that?
Hey, he's willing to get slapped for charity. Or who am I to say no if I'm raising money?
Okay, let's stop hitting people. Okay. Let's stop hitting people.
I can't. Hey, again, if the price is right for the MAC fund, like, I can't make any promises I don't intend to keep here, Jay Hood.
Well, and by the way, if it like you're saying, Brian, if there are wrestlers bellyaching about The Rock, they probably should see his resume, not just WWE, but also as the final boss in TKO. He can do whatever he wants. This whole WWE thing is more UFC now than it ever has.
Sure. Even the simple, go down the street and ask someone if they know who Dwayne Johnson and The Rock is, and 95% of people will say yes. Which, how many WWE superstars can you say that about right now?
That's true.
Yeah, I can't imagine I can't imagine anybody who's on this WrestleMania card is upset by this. Like,
right.
Everybody understands how this works. or at least they should.
Is Grayson Waller on the card?
Maybe he's the one. Maybe he's the one who's upset. Oh, man. Oh, so many other things to get into in the world of professional wrestling. There are other top 3 stories. We call it the 3 count here on GKW. Brian, what's number 1 this week?
We've talked a lot about free agency. Okada, Monet, and Ospreay all heading to AEW. The New York Post, when talking about it, said while WWE is as hot as ever and doesn't need any of those 3 at the moment, the fact that none of them came to the industry leader should at least give Triple H and company some pause. So does WWE need to look in the mirror after missing out on the big free agents?
I don't know if they need to look in the mirror. They're in a different spot. I mean, by all accounts, all 3 of those got huge deals. And this is the difference when you're dealing with somebody's private money versus a publicly traded company, right? Like as a publicly traded company in TKO, you're expected to turn X amount of profit. And if you sign Mercedes Moné to a $10+ million contract, if you sign Okada to whatever he ended up getting, I know the reports are different on whatever they ended up paying Okada, and then that made it into storyline a couple of weeks ago on Dynamite. If you pay Will Ospreay what he ended up getting, like maybe you end up having to cut somewhere else, or you've got to find a way to be able to make the amount back. And as the Post story said, like they don't need any one of those 3. I mean, WWE is as hot without them. Now, they still need to then retain the people that they have. You know, they can't let Drew McIntyre or Becky or Seth walk out the door when their contracts expire. You have to keep that going and keep getting, new blood in there. But I like that they missed out on those 3 personally as a wrestling fan, because not that makes AEW equal to WWE, but it makes AEW more interesting, and it makes AEW, worth continuing to watch and pay attention to. And when there are 2 competitors and both are willing to pay a lot of money, that's just good for the performers as well. I like that they all went to AEW. I don't think would WWE be better with Will Ospreay getting ready for WrestleMania 40? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, they've got some really compelling storylines, and this is probably the most well-rounded WrestleMania card in quite some time.
I also think when you are WWE, you got to think about your youth in NXT and think about what the next generation is. One thing about the WWE that we don't talk a lot about, because these athletes are great, the men and women, is that there's age on that roster, right? The people that we talk about a lot on GKW are 30, 35, 40, 50 years old. And these people are still box office, but you still got to think about your Braun Breakers and those that are in NXT and think about the future there. Listen, I think that wrestling's best when there's balance across the board. And I think with AEW, even though they have an abundance of talent, the talent they have in AEW, at least if I need Will Ospreay, I don't need him in WWE. I want him in AEW because I know he's going to give bangers. Same thing with Mercedes Moné. Been there, done that. She's already been WWE. Let's see her with different competition. Okada, one of the best wrestlers in the world, is going to take on some of the best wrestlers in the world in AEW. So eventually, you know how this works. There's going to be a talent swap where those 3 wrestlers we mentioned eventually is going to be WWE. Some of the WWE people we've seen already go to AEW. So to me, it's about balance, Brian. Like, I don't need those 3 in WWE to enjoy those 3 wrestlers in particular.
Yeah, 100% agree. And almost to both your points, from a business standpoint, if you're WWE and you have developmental and you have these young people, in their eyes, if you look at a Carmelo Hayes, a Braun Breaker, and a Tiffany Stratton, you can look at those 3 and say, oh, they'll be those 3 in, a decade. And it's going to cost 1/10 of what you're paying Okada, Ospreay, and Monet. So they have that to lean back on. Those free agents going to AEW makes them more viable, which makes other people more viable, which makes other companies, more appealing to someone like a Nick Nemeth who isn't in AEW yet, can go to New Japan and work Impact and things like that. We say it all the time. Best for business is best for everyone. If everyone is eating, then that is good for us as wrestling fans.
Yeah, but again, you got to make sure that you keep those key players that you have, because it wasn't that long ago. And granted, this was circumstances that were created within AEW and they had to fire CM Punk. Yep. Like you still then brought in CM Punk. Like that hasn't paid the dividends yet, but my guess is that he's going to announce in Chicago on Monday that he's the WrestleMania host. I guess that would be my biggest guess with him teasing that, the first 4 letters are, Phil in Philadelphia. Okay. So I guess that means he's going to be at Mania. Yeah, it was a bit of a stretch. But my guess is that that's going to be him announcing that he's going to be there. He's going to be the host of WrestleMania this year, and that's how he's going to get involved. And anytime CM Punk, is on television, like everybody in Chicago is going to be going crazy for him on Monday night. Everybody went crazy for him when he came back. Everybody went crazy for him at the Royal Rumble. Like Phil Brooks is such a big star in professional wrestling that they won there as well. It's not like they're losing out every free agent or every big name that happens to go out there. So they lose out on this stretch, and that certainly made AEW better because they debuted them in back-to-back weeks. Yeah, that's good for AEW, but at the same time, in this build to Mania, would you really want to kind of sprinkle in an Ospreay right now? I mean, you would, because if you signed Ospreay to all that money, you'd have to put him on the card.
Yes.
And it would be a great match with whoever he put on there, but you wouldn't be able to build the meaningful storylines that you have with so many of these other matches.
You kind of equate this to sports as well, because you feel like if you like the talent, if that talent's got a 2 or 3 deal, and if he's still viable, you're going to eventually get him anyway. I think that's how H looks at it too, because he looks at his roster and he goes, "I don't really have any holes in my roster," and we really like the youth that's coming up through the ranks. So when it comes to Okada, here's a guy here that wants to come to the United States. He says he's put New Japan in the rearview mirror, which is great. I just know one thing. I think that people look at those 3 wrestlers that we're talking about and think about what they would look like in the WWE and how would they debut.
Yeah.
Here's one thing. Okada would not be in a 6-man on Rampage or on Collision, rather. He would not be. That's not how WWE would debut Okada. Because that's where his first match was, in a 6-man. It would not be in a 6-man.
But he wouldn't be in a random tag match that you throw him in there?
No, it would not.
Can they coexist?
In a match, and by the way, which was a handicap match, and we can still use that term, it was pretty much 3-on-1 in that situation, right? So the idea that that's how you debut, I don't know, one of the best wrestlers in the world, that would not happen in WWE, Gabe. At all.
No, I mean, they might tag him with Shinsuke. Well, maybe not anymore, but that's definitely what Vince would have done.
Yes, and they'd give him Mist. You can't forget the Mist.
They would not do that. There would be no salt. There would be no Mist. What are we talking about here?
Oh, Vince would have done that 100%. You're telling me Vince run Okada? Vince is clearly doing that.
Yeah.
Triple H would have debuted him one-on-one. It probably would have been a squash match, to be honest. Like, he might have debuted Okada against some sort of local talent, or maybe he runs out, somebody else. Yeah, I thought about Tozawa. I'm like, no, they wouldn't do that. I don't think they would do that. Trying to think who else they'd squash out there.
No, it'd be Okada versus Omos at WrestleMania. Like, that's the route they would end up going.
Vince would book that.
Right.
God damn.
Look how big he is. But that's your point from a wrestling standpoint. Like, Ospreay's first TV match against Fletcher a couple weeks back, we would never see that in WWE. Like, pay-per-view or television. Like, you would get a couple highlights here and there, but, like, I love seeing the organic growth of Ospreay in those matches. The fact that we get to see him for however long, or I guess until his body gives out, like, I'm in.
I mean, there was the report out there that WWE was maybe a little more, I didn't realize he was this charismatic. But at the same time, like, I'm glad, again, for those same reasons.
Not like
I'm glad he's
syrup, though. You got to remember that.
I'm glad he's not in WWE, because we wouldn't get this version. Like, this version of Ospreay doesn't fit in WWE. Like, the first time he does Hidden Blade to someone, like, what are you doing? This is Monday Night Raw on June 13th. Why are you hitting me this hard? What is going on?
Yeah, Vince would not allow it.
No.
Like, what's your finish? Oh, it's a Hidden Blade. Oh, that sounds good, pal. He puts the headset on. Oh, God damn! No! Ring the bell! Ring it! He'd be singling for the bell.
And that'd be a Tuesday night house show that he's hitting it, and Vince is seeing him for the first time. Like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute! You're trying to take his head off? Son of a bitch! Well, that's my finish, bruv. Yeah. Instead, we get the cheeky bruv. We're getting Ospreay with personality, which I love. And by the way, with Mercedes Moné, we had to mention this too. Doesn't it feel, the last couple of weeks, I'm watching her, it feels WWE-ish. It does, doesn't it? The way she's talking to the crowd, 10 minutes on the mic, that kind of thing. Like, that's what she's used to in the other company.
Yeah.
But the staccato way that she's doing her promo is a good promo. It's not great. It's a good promo because it gets the fans in, it gets them involved. They can chant CEO, but it's very WWE-esque the way that those promos are. I'm like, has it been 10? Is it 15 minutes? She's still talking? Like, all right, what's going on here? It doesn't feel like she's AEW yet, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think we need her in the ring. Like, we need to see her work.
Yeah, and in terms of the cutting of the promos, it's not like she was cutting, most of the stuff she did for New Japan were like video packages, right? Like she wasn't getting into the live ring cutting a promo. So that's just kind of the style she's used to. And I don't think that Tony Khan has promo classes that anybody at AEW is taking to get used to an AEW style. So I think it's just something that she's going to have to transition to over the course of, a few promos. And I mean, she's charismatic. She's fantastic. Like she's going to get there. Like I'm not. And even if she keeps doing the WWE style, like I don't know if that's going to necessarily be a bad thing.
No, it's not. It's not a knock. I'm just saying that that's what I see. I see that there's no real difference in her promo from WWE to AEW. Not saying it's a knock. I'm just saying like that's. I felt like I was watching Raw.
Yeah.
On Wednesday night.
Even the CEO thing like feels like almost forced and WWE-esque. It's like, hey, this is what you're supposed to chant. Like chant that.
Yeah, and again, it's completely fine. I would ask for Tony Khan to get his ass out of Gorilla and leave the Young Bucks and go into the ring and talk to him and help him with those promos instead of just sitting on a potted plant.
But he was so natural in that spot.
Yeah, it's just that's exactly. I'm assuming that's exactly how it goes.
He's just sitting there with the headphones. Yeah. It was great. Yeah. Get up.
What do we got at number 2 this week, Brian?
All right, we talked about WrestleMania. We had the contract signing on Monday night. Gunther defends the IC title against Sami Zayn. Chad Gable's still sort of around the picture as well. So get those pencils out. Fantasy book, the IC title picture for Mania.
Okay, so I feel like I've been wrong every step of the way when it comes to fantasy booking the IC title. I thought this is where the ladder match was going to be. I was wrong. So then they booked the gauntlet match. Okay, clearly Chad Gable is going to be the winner here. They've invested a lot. The telling of the story. Nope, it's going to be Sami Zayn. And yet still Chad Gable is somehow involved around. I see Gable being more of just a motivational figure for Sami. I don't think at this late of stage we're going to see an addition of Chad Gable to this match. I don't think that they're going to turn this into a triple threat match. We already have a triple threat match for the U.S. Championship. I think this is going to be one-on-one Zayn versus Gunther. And I kind of like the promo that Sami cut in the ring of, hey, last year, nobody thought we'd end the longest tag team reign of all time. This year, I'm ending your longest IC reign of all time. I kind of like that angle that they took with Sami Zayn's promo. So my fantasy booking is very simple. Sami's going over Gunther, so Gunther can move on to bigger and better things.
Well, first of all, last week, Brian, I don't know if your ears were smoking, but Gabe and I were talking about you because we know that you were super happy to see Sami Zayn in this spot. We thought you were out celebrating, partying, doing lines, and happy.
Well, let me refute that. I'm sort of disappointed this is where Sami is at Mania.
Why is that?
Like, because he was so up there, and this almost feels like an afterthought. And like in my world, I don't even think he gets the match. I think the way they go is, all right, Chad, you get one more shot. I'll put the title shot on the line. Chad Gable wins it. It's Gunther versus Gable, and Sami's left without a dance partner.
So you think that the IC title's below him? Are you out of your mind?
That's a world champion right there. Do you not remember Montreal?
No, it's not. Apparently not. He is not a world championship material because he had his one shot at Montreal. You can't do it at home. You're done.
That's Vince's fault.
Okay, well, listen. The idea you're telling me that the IC title is below him. If you want him to be a singles champion, this is his best opportunity. Your guy. He is not going to be the world champion. I'm just here to tell you, it's not happening. Sami Zayn will not be world. Now, IC champion, possible. But as we talked about last week, my issue is that Chad Gable gave a great match with Gunther. And the idea that you're setting him to the side for him to be disappointed, it's like, and now he may not even be at WrestleMania. I think that Gable's deserving of it. I think the crowd's behind Gable. I think Gable can give him a better match than Sammy. How about that?
I wouldn't go that far. It'll be a good match. I mean, Sammy's still going to deliver in the ring. Like,
you don't think Chad Gable could give a better match than Sammy?
No.
I'm just gonna kick back. You boys do whatever you're gonna do. I'm just gonna sit back and listen.
Like, yes, Chad Gable's on a great run right now. That doesn't mean he's better than Sami Zayn, but like from a story standpoint, I agree with you that it should be Chad Gable. Sami Zayn, like, give him Rollins' title, put him in the picture. I want Zayn versus Drew at SummerSlam for that title. Like, the IC title is below Sami Zayn after the year he had.
I would love to hear your pecking order of baby faces in this company. Like, what is Sammy in the top 5 really at this point in time? Think about it.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Cody's obviously 1, Rollins 2, Jey Uso 3.
Yes.
I'm just looking over the Mania card. Who else is out there?
Where's Randy?
I put Sammy above Randy.
Becky.
Becky's top 5.
Okay. Bianca.
I thought. I mean, yeah. Well, he's definitely not top 5 if we're factoring in the women.
Yeah.
I just thought we were talking about men. Like, he's definitely not top 5 if we're talking women.
He's top 10 for the company.
Okay. Caveman Night Soul. He gets out of his slumber. Hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. You're bringing the broads in. Eh?
Well, I mean, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, Sammy's not top 5 if you're adding in, again,
Yeah.
if you're adding in Becky, if you're adding in Bianca, yeah, who, by the way, doesn't have a dance partner right now.
Correct.
Yeah, but
this is a genderless conversation. We're just talking about rosters every Thursday. Genderless. It doesn't matter.
I thought we were having the conversation on the men's roster just because, like,
sure.
If the point is like, oh, he's a world champion, well, how many more men are ahead of him for that opportunity in terms of being a babyface on that side of the roster?
Well, we talked about, the run Drew's been on and how he deserves the world title at Mania. And this has been one hell of a run the last 1-2 months. Sammy was on that run for a year. What was his reward? Like, they gave him tag titles to lug around. Nothing ever came of that run with KO. Like, it was a cool main event spot, but it was just extra stuff to add to your luggage. Like, there was nothing prominent there. Like, he hasn't gotten that payoff yet.
I mean, main eventing night 1 is pretty good. Like,
sure, that's cool.
I mean, that's nothing.
KO. Add him to the list. KO.
Above Sammy?
Yeah.
They've killed the momentum so much. Like,
yeah. Well, the reason why I ask you the question, Brian, is because this is when you say that he's world championship material and the IC title is below him. Just think about how long a list that we got to get to before we get to Sammy.
But you have 2 world titles. That's why you have 2 world titles now, because your other champion doesn't show up. And assuming that Cody goes over, now you'll have 2 titles on TV every week. There's a spot to get him involved.
I think it's fast. I mean, here's a guy here that looks at the Intercontinental Championship like garbage, like it's trash.
No, it's great.
Gunther's had it for a year and a half and just holding his nose at it over there. Like, no, PU, stinky title. I want nothing to do with it.
I'm just saying, like, it's a chance to elevate someone. Like, what does Sammy get out of it? It doesn't elevate him. He's already been up there. Like, he's on the descent right now. You need to push him back up.
Shout out to Razor Ramon and Tito Santana and Randy Savage and Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine and Mr. Perfect.
Yes.
I'm sorry that Brian Roach doesn't think your championship is worthy of Sami effing Zayn.
Great for to elevate someone like a Chad Gable. Chad Gable can win that Mania. It'd be a great spot for him. A young tryhard like him.
Oh, you call it a young tryhard. A young tryhard. Is that what?
Wow!
I actually don't even know if Chad Gable is
personal.
Young.
This guy, he's definitely not young. I'll tell you that right now.
Let's see what
but like, what are we doing? This got personal. He's taking out Chad Gable for no reason.
38 years old, Chad Gable.
Yeah,
apparently.
38.
Yeah.
Hey, in that company, that is young.
That is it. Yeah.
That's probably the younger half of the roster. Yeah.
Holy smoke.
Bringing down the median age at 38. All right. I feel like I have to ask this question before we move on to the next topic. And I feel like I'm going to ask it every show before Mania. Because you mentioned assuming Cody goes over. Yeah. What percent are we putting it at that Cody wins on night 2?
90%.
85.
Yeah, I think I'm only at like 75.
Well, okay.
Man, look. First of all, if he does not finish the story, just like AEW toward the end, you're never in the title picture again. Never in the title. Like, there is no third chance, bro. No. Like,
What if he climbs up the rankings? What if his win-loss is really good over the next year?
In the AEW top 10.
Yes.
Climb up the rankings. Young upstart Cody Rhodes climbs up the ladder of WWE to the title picture again. Young upstart Cody.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm pretty confident he's going to win, but I don't know, man. I've got my doubts. I've got my doubts that they're actually ready to pull the trigger on Roman Reigns no longer being the champ.
They don't like the obvious, and Cody winning seems to be obvious, so be a hell of a swerve.
You know,
because again, like they were ready to go on from this WrestleMania with Roman still being the champ. If the original plan was Rock versus Roman, Rock wasn't winning the championship.
Yep.
So
I am just floored by the young upstarts. I can't get past it, man. I can't get past it. I mean, young upstart. I'm just like that's Elton Prince, right? That's who that is. It's Lewis Howley. 26, young upstarts, right? As much as we don't like Austin Theory, he's 26.
Young Money in the Bank winner, though.
Braun Breaker, 26.
I mean, Chad Gable, when he first came in, I mean, obviously, Brian forgot that Chad Gable used to be a tag team partner of Kurt Angle's son. That's clearly something that Brian forgot. And that's when he was a young and upcomer. He's been around a lot longer. I mean, Kurt's kid has been retired because of the neck injury for a long time.
That's a good point.
Julius Creed and those Creed brothers are destined to knee injuries because they won't wear knee pads.
Yeah,
but they're very strong. Have you seen?
Spoiler alert: they put on a hell of a show on Monday night.
Yep.
That may be talked about later in the program.
That's fine, but an ACL's coming. I mean, knee pads, please, for God's sakes.
There are children watching.
That's why Steve Austin can't walk today. No knee pads. Gotta have.
What do we got at number 3 this week, Brian? All right, last night, AEW Dynamite, we saw Chris Jericho, speaking of young upstarts, get a shot at the FTW title.
Lionheart. Yeah, he turns back the clock. Whenever he's Lionheart, he's young Chris Jericho again.
Wore the yellow and the tights and everything. So
different entrance music.
Yeah, no Judas. So he lost the Hook last night, and that seems to be the Jericho route right now. Is Chris Jericho good for young talent?
I really want to say yes.
Okay.
But it seems like anytime he ends up letting, and I'm sure there are more examples, but the only two that stand out in my head of him having younger up and coming talents go over him, I think of WWE and Fandango when he beat him at WrestleMania, and I think of the random Action Andretti match that he had in AEW when Action Andretti went over him. That did nothing for anybody.
You don't remember that long run of Action Andretti after that?
Well, I mean, I know I still see him on my television, but that's about it. Like, it didn't lead to anything like, oh, you beat Chris Jericho. That means now you're in line for this, this, and this. And that's probably going to change with Hook because Hook has been more established in AEW as he goes over. They've done a better job of the steady build of Hook. But I mean, I feel like Chris is trying to do the right thing and have some of this younger talent go over, but ultimately it just doesn't seem like it goes anywhere more often than not.
Okay, so I respect Chris Jericho, and I think he's the Tom Brady of AEW because he's been there and done that. I think he deserves his flowers for everything he's done in the business. At age 53, he's still going, looks great when he does wrestle. I don't feel like he's taking 3 or 4 steps. You don't see him on Botchamania because he's pretty sound as a wrestler at his age. However, Chris Jericho is confusing the audience, which is really a byproduct of the AEW to allow Chris Jericho, who has a lot of say in that company. I mean, when the company started, people looked at it and said, oh, Chris Jericho's going to AEW? I mean, he was the linchpin for all of it. Young Bucks, Cody, yes, but Jericho, I think, also is part of that lineage of getting AEW started and off the ground.
There's a reason they put the championship on him to start.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's a star. and a Hall of Famer, and he walked away from the WWE when he didn't have to, but he did because he wanted to first start. Guys, he's confusing the audience. Is he the Ocho? Is he the Painmaker? Is he Lionheart, Chris Jericho? I don't know what he is. I feel like this is like he's going through a midlife crisis, because if it's not Lionheart with music that we haven't seen or heard, if it's not that, if it's not the Ocho, if it's not him being the Painmaker, or him going through Collision, taking on Mexican wrestling talent just because, it confuses the audience. Like, are you a tribute band or are you real? Right? What are you doing? Like that matchup against Hook. So you lost to Hook. Hook's already over. You didn't do him any favors. So I don't.
Did you hear those groans when he broke out of the red rum?
Yes.
Yeah.
There were groans from the crowd, like, oh, like this isn't ending it.
But Brian, I don't know it. So here's what it is. He doesn't have a status in the company. He should be on commentary on Collision. That should be or in the back helping. Because when you're just out there just like sucking up time, 12, 15-minute matches, and it's cold matches, and you don't have a real story, and you're like 3-4 different characters, it's like, that's not entertaining. Like the matches are fine, but you're taking time from younger talent.
Yep.
Feeling like, oh, it's not going to hurt me because I'm already over, so I'm going to give it back to them. No, he should be off of television and should be helping the people in the back and being on commentary, because there's nothing for Chris Jericho right now, clearly.
Yep, I completely agree, because, yes, the king of reinvention, like AEW is where they are today because of him early on, but I think we need a break from Chris Jericho right now. Like some of the names you mentioned, Gabe, also that Hobbs squash match. Ricky Starks went over him at a pay-per-view. Sammy Guevara, like we talk about the uncertainty with him. I think a lot of that is because of his association with Jericho, where they're together, they're not together. Like he can't leave his shadow. It doesn't help anyone. Like just give other people that airtime, and I think that helps AEW more than you losing to some of these young guys.
I mean, Sammy's kind of done some of the stuff to himself, and maybe the reason why Chris. Yeah, I mean, and the reason Chris is maybe wandering aimlessly right now is because I think he's supposed to be in a tag team with the suspended Sammy Guevara. So I think that's part of why he's drifting aimlessly, and now they're throwing him into this thing with Hook, and maybe they end up tagging and getting into the AEW tag team tournament.
But I don't want that. That does nothing for Hook.
No. I want Jericho as far away from Hook as possible right now, because I have been – I mean, when we first started doing this podcast, we did like this – draft. Okay, who are you starting a promotion with? And one of my last picks, because I have loved the look of Hook since day one. And I feel like AEW has done a really good job of a slow build. They haven't thrown him into any of these matches that we've talked about oh, man, that really undercut him. Or like what WWE did with LA Knight. Oh, you throw him in a title match when we know you're not winning the title match. That really undercut him. And
well, the one time they made him look good.
They made him look great against Samoa Joe, right? So I feel like they're building something with Hook here where he's going to be this, like, again, a young, in his 20s kid that within the next 18 months, I think could be a world champion AEW if they continue to do this right. But given the history that we've seen of Chris Jericho when he's kind of gotten paired randomly with these other people, like that could be an anchor on him going forward.
It's the reverse Cena. That's what's happening, right?
Sure.
So Jericho can lose to these guys, and then they're never elevated. Right? What do we just lay out? Like Hook is at a certain level in the right, but that Hobbs match you guys were just talking about, right? Hobbs dominated Jericho, so that should elevate Hobbs to a championship level solo. No, not happening, right? So even with him losing, feeling like I'm doing right by the business. So what happened to that young kid we just talked about? He's I think he's in. Is he in ROH? Is he on Rampage?
Action Andretti. He pops up every once in a while with Top Flight.
Yeah, like they're part of a 6-man.
See, now I know some of this is not on Jericho because he's not booking the company, but booking the shows. But I mean, the point is, like, you have to tell Tony Khan, look, I'm going to lose to Action Andretti. I see something in him. Do you see something in him? Okay, let's agree. Okay, I'll lose to him. But now you have to put the rocket up his ass. Like I see something in Hobbs. I'm gonna let Hobbs destroy me, but don't squash Hobbs. Put him in the title picture. Give him an opportunity to run with the championship. You have to if you're going to volunteer your body and your time and say, I'm an established veteran. I don't mind losing, but elevate someone else. If they're getting squashed after you lose and you're still up here, then what's the point of it? That's why you shouldn't be on TV, Jericho.
You can't spam losing, right? Because every time, like, we already know it doesn't mean anything. Like, we started having that conversation with Cena to the point where WWE was smart enough to make it a part of the storyline last time we saw John with Solo. Like, oh man, it's been forever since Cena's won a singles televised match. Like, oh, can he actually do it? Can he still get over? Can he get it done when the lights are the brightest? And they added that to the storyline, whereas Jericho just, well, I guess that one didn't work. Well, what if I lose to this guy? All right, that didn't work. Well, what if I lose to this guy? And it's funny because we make fun of Bryan Danielson for losing every big match because he refuses to go over anyone. But it's just, for whatever reason, it just feels different with Chris, that he just, despite losing, can't get any of these people over.
And that's the weird part, because like the alternative, if he has to be on TV every week, like he could very easily pull a Hogan. Like, oh, look at these young upstarts. Like, hey, I should work with him. Like, leg drop, brother, 1, 2, 3, and like squash these guys. So like he's not doing that, which is good, but like it still just isn't working. And especially when we talk about all the talent in that company and there's only limited airtime, we don't need 10 to 15 minutes of Chris every week.
I love that. Hogan against Billy Kidman.
Right.
That doesn't work for me, brother. No, I don't work for him. You don't? No. How about Arn Anderson? Yeah, and Arn Anderson gets over. Brother. I don't know. Like, so that's the thing. And again, I respect Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
I understand what he's trying to do, but there's this push and pull. If Tony doesn't see Jericho's what Jericho thinks of this talent, then why lose? Why be on TV? I know you got to pay him. I'm sure he's making top dollar in that company. Probably one of the richest guys in that company. But he can help you in other areas, though. And
even the commentary thing, like you said, remember the pandemic, he got over that indie work, or was it Pineapple Pete?
Yes.
Like, that was through commentary.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, here's an idea, just off the top of my empty head. Here's an idea. Adam Copeland needs some help in this feud if it's still going to continue with Christian. How about the Canadians help each other? Hey, Jericho, just back up Adam Copeland. No one asked you to tag with me. Just back him up because he's by himself. He doesn't have any help.
He's got Daddy Magic.
Yeah, he's got the best help money can buy. He's got our friend Daddy Magic by his side.
To get hit in the face and fall down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Whoa. He helped put the handcuffs on Christian last night.
Okay.
And he was there to raise the hand in the center of the ring. Like,
yeah.
Daddy Magic to end of Dynamite. It's a big night.
This is not what his 2024. He thought he was going to do more. We pumped him up. Yeah. We told him our anniversary show, you're going to be great this year. It's going to be your year, Daddy Magic. Thank you so much. I need it. Like,
he was in the main event picture. This is an elevation.
In the main event picture.
There's a lot. I mean, those words are getting stretched very hard.
One of those young upstarts at AEW.
Brian's all over it. All the young upstarts out there. Oh, what do we got in news and notes this week, Brian?
All right, some announcer news to start things off. According to Fightful, MLW has reached out to Mauro Ranallo about potential appearances. Mauro and Court Bauer actually worked together on Strikeforce in the MMA world.
Good. Look, I was incredibly happy with the work he did in WWE. If he can get back into the world of professional wrestling, that's just good for everybody in pro wrestling. Mauro is a true professional. He's great at play-by-play, and I would be excited to see him back.
Yeah, I don't see enough of Mauro these days. I mean, because boxing is kind of just gone off the landscape. There's some MMA here and there, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Mauro Ranallo, a classic play-by-play guy, and for MLW, that would raise the bar big time. MLW, by the way, just had a show last Saturday, Once Upon a Time in New York. It was on YouTube. You know, solid show as always from MLW. But Mauro Ranallo as a play-by-play guy, now that puts a lot of what would you say, panache, or just like a presence to the broadcast.
Cachet.
Yeah. So that'd be awesome.
WWE this week announcing April 1st on Peacock, a new documentary, Bray Wyatt Becoming Immortal. The full doc will be voiced by The Undertaker. Interviews include John Cena, Becky Lynch, Triple H, Hulk Hogan, and Bray's brother, Bo Dallas.
Super excited for this. I think it's cool that The Undertaker is doing the narration of it just because they had that cool moment in the ring. Kind of one of the last memories I think a lot of people are going to have of Bray when him and Taker kind of crossed paths and Taker was trying to pass that torch. That being said, do we need Hulk Hogan in this? Why is Hulk Hogan in this? I don't understand the relevance of Hulk being in a Bray Wyatt documentary.
I'm confused by that as well. Hopefully, it will just be a glimpse of Hogan giving his thoughts on Bray Wyatt and then get out, because it's not like they work together.
No.
He might have been running around. Bray might have been running around the locker rooms as Mike Rotunda's son in the 90s, maybe as IRS. I have no idea. I'm just glad the documentary is happening. I guess two things I thought about that. One, great that he's going to have his documentary. Two, looks like this may not be Bray's year at WrestleMania.
Correct. It does appear that's the case. So transition to Hall of Fame stuff. Friday, April 5th in Philadelphia. We heard about Muhammad Ali last week going to the celebrity wing. Last night, WWE announcing Thunderbolt Patterson will be going in. And AEW, Tony Khan, in an interview with comicbook.com, talking about a potential AEW Hall of Fame one day, said that when or if they ever do it, the first names inducted would be Sting and Brody Lee. He also would like to honor Jay Briscoe.
Yeah, and again, I'm assuming Jericho would go in there as their first champ. Like, again, I think AEW is a long ways away from that in terms of putting together their own Hall of Fame. But I don't know why they don't just put Bray in right away. Like having Bray in, having this documentary, it seems in look, it's silly because there's no actual Hall of Fame, right? It's just kind of an honor that you get to bestow upon someone. But with having the documentary, I think that you should just put him in right now. Like, you're going to put him in. Like, he's a multiple world champion in your company. He's eventually going to be put in. I don't know why you wouldn't just do it this year.
You want to be petty? AEW should put Bray Wyatt in their Hall of Fame. The Wyatt family, right? Because you have Brody Lee.
Right.
Why don't you put them in your Hall of Fame? How about that?
That'd be something.
You got the jump on me. Could you imagine?
Well, you're the historian.
Huh?
This class for WWE Hall of Fame feels sort of light. No?
Light? What are you saying about Ali there?
Yeah. He's a big deal, I guess. From the non-celebrity wing.
Oh, well, yes. Well, what does that say about what do you say about Heyman? For some people, Heyman is in a Mount Rushmore of managers. Like, we're not going to get this again. Like, we're not. I mean, there's going to be people that's walk talent to the ring, but we'll never have a Heyman again. I mean, like, he's put this whole storyline together pretty much with the bloodline. I think that, I mean, for me, he's front facing on this because he's in Philadelphia, the home of ECW. That matters absolutely. Now the Rotunda Wyndham combination that took me off guard because I'm like, yeah, I know they were part of the first WrestleMania. I mean, they were a good tag team, but not for a long time. And I just thought that's strange. Not a negative, but it's just like Rotunda Wyndham. Never thought of it that way.
And then anything on Thunderbolt?
Thunderbolt Patterson. When they chose Thunderbolt Patterson to go to the WWE Hall of Fame, they scraped the absolute bottom of the barrel.
Wow. Okay. So solid breakdown. All right. And finally, in news and notes, Dave Meltzer on Jungle Boy Jack Perry says, quote, "He has not been fired. He's absolutely not been fired, but they're not using him. Essentially, Tony's really mad at him because he cost them CM Punk. He's getting the blame."
Probably unfair because it's not like CM Punk had nothing to do with CM Punk getting fired. Like, CM Punk not be able to control his emotions because Jack Perry decided to go into business for himself. But do you really miss Jungle Boy Jack Perry on AEW TV right now?
No, I've only seen him the one time, and we saw it in New Japan World.
Yeah, he's been working shows there. He's been working for New Japan.
That I think whatever that New Japan show. That's the last time I saw him. It's the middle of the night. I'm watching them. You got the beard and everything else, and it's like, what in the world is this, right? And
He's Jungle Man.
So
he's no longer Jungle Boy. He's Jungle Man. He's a beard. Man, he had a beard.
You can book it right, where all of a sudden he comes to the crowd. It's like, who is this hobo coming down the stairs? And it's just like, now he just takes a mic and just do it Razor Ramon, or rather Scott Hall style, and just start something, right? I mean,
I think you can put him with the Bucks, and like the Bucks are the ones that rehired him, and like, how dare Tony do this?
That's great booking. I love that. That's perfect. But he comes out of nowhere, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to, so the character is hard when Punk's not there. It's hard to be able to do that unless you're just this renegade. Like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to renegade. I'm going to do whatever I want to. They try to get rid of me. They try to push me off to Japan. So that personal issue could draw money. But then again, now who's he fighting? Tony Khan?
Right.
Yeah. So, because you don't have a dance partner. So, I don't know.
Yep.
What did you guys have for your matches of the week this week?
Well, sir, let's go one step at a time.
All right.
Let's go with Becky against Nia Jax.
Yeah,
now,
last woman standing. Had it down on my list.
Oh, you have a women on your list?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering. I heard surprise. Whoa, the women! Now hold on now. No, I know that for some this is not a fresh match, but if you have different steps, it becomes a fresh match. And so, again, we're watching the best work in Nia Jax's career.
Yep.
Because she's involved, she's elevated with a main eventer. And so I love that match because of the physicality. Nia Jax took a beating at the end, and I really enjoyed that match.
Well, we talk about deserved. Nia Jax deserves a spot on this Mania card.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She's earned it.
Yep.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, doesn't deserve it. She's earned it.
Yep.
Stealing the line from Drew. He's not getting what he deserves. He's taking what he's earned. And she has absolutely earned a spot. And if the reports are true, I saw one there saying they're looking for 7 matches each night of WrestleMania. That still leaves 4 potential spots that are open with 10 announced matches at this point.
All right. Next one.
I'll keep it to the hardcore-ish stuff also. Copeland versus Christian. It's 2024. And like Edge and Christian in a ring, bleeding and using hockey sticks and being in a penalty box, like unbelievable. And the fact that we still get this is just so much fun to watch those two go.
I'm a big sucker for people in their entrances in their home country, and they did it to me again last night. Like Toronto singing Metalingus back to Adam Copeland as he's standing in the middle of the ring. Like that just got me. Like I just got me really excited.
I don't think he expected it. Like I think the way he sort of took it in, like, oh, this is happening. All right.
Well, because again, it's one thing when it happens with Jericho, right? Like, because that's a song that's been forever and whatever. And I know this song has been his, back to WWE and now, and it's always been associated with Adam Copeland. But it's not like a typical sing-along song. Like, so the crowd just knows it. They love Adam Copeland, so they're just going to sing it to him. And I loved it.
Yep. Toronto's such a great wrestling city, guys. It really is. It's a city that Vince didn't like because it would just ruin all his plans. Heels are baby faces are heels. Just like, Bizarro, this is not how it really is. Like, yeah, well, it's not Norfolk, Virginia. These people, they will take it over. Toronto will take over the town. Hey, we're just celebrating the anniversary of Rock and Hogan.
Yeah.
It's a double turn because of the crowd. A double turn. Rock ends up being the heel. Hollywood Hogan becomes the babyface because of the Toronto crowd. So I love that crowd. That is fantastic. Kingston against Okada. Okada winning the championship on a non-pay-per-view. That says a lot. It's almost like Kingston's like, here, just take it, man.
That's what happened too. Like the second that this match was announced, Kingston's like, no, I can't win it. Can't win it. No, I'm not. I can't beat the ring, man. No, I can't do it.
Not surprising. Social media, great Eddie Kingston promo where, he tells Okada, take the belt, like defend it, like the way you would the New Japan World title, like Eddie being Eddie.
Just a mark for himself. It's just like a mark for the situation, right?
Yeah.
Like he just off the back, be like, no, I'm beating Okada, right? Can I get my hand raised? No, it's Okada. No, bro. No, it's Okada. No, go ahead. Just take it. It's Okada. I'm not good. Go ahead.
But that was a great match. In terms of, I've got one other AEW from Collision. Again, not shocking. Danielson versus Shibata kicked off Collision on Saturday night. That was Oh, okay. I guess I'll have to sit down and watch Danielson on a Saturday night wrestle another great guy. Okay, fine. I'll just sit here and watch it.
And now next week we get him versus Ospreay.
Yeah.
The Shibata versus Ospreay they announced last night just because.
Yeah, why not? Oh, no, now I've got to watch Shibata versus Ospreay. Oh, shucks. I'm really disappointed. I'm going to have to do that again. Oh, man. Sounds like a bad time.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it is our pleasure to just watch these matches. Collision, I mean, if you watch one match, all right, I got my fill. Good night. That's all I do, right? I mean, to see Bryan Danielson's chest looking like hamburger was just amazing. I mean, the chest to the neck, by the way.
Yeah.
You notice that? Oh, it's so unbelievable. Just so hard hitting. It was absolutely incredible. And I'm still thinking to myself, how will Nigel McGuinness survive against Bryan Danielson when Danielson's like this in Wembley? It better happen.
I agree.
Happen. Yeah.
The other one I throw out there, we talked about it earlier, DIY versus Creed Brothers. Like,
that was the best tag match of Raw.
So hot when they got called up and they sort of cooled off. And I'd say in general, like tag team wrestling in general this week, like the qualifiers for the Mania match, some of the AEW stuff, like a lot of good tag team wrestling for a week. Very surprising.
I really thought for a moment, I thought the Creed brothers were going to go over. I thought it was pretty obvious the DIY was going to be the ones getting in there just because they've gotten more television time. I thought they were going to pull a swerve. Yeah. You know, I thought Triple H was going to, screw it. Let's put the Creed brothers in. Let's see what happens. And I was kind of sitting there wondering, like, man, Gargano, like we talked to him before he signed with WWE. He's wanted to have WrestleMania moments. He obviously, he wants to wrestle for the IC title someday. And I was thinking he was going to miss out again on a WrestleMania opportunity, but that is not the case. DIY ended up going over in a fantastic match.
And in terms of the Creeds, I don't know which one's which, but the one that does the stand-up suplex thing is still one of the most impressive things out there.
It's just the selling point. I've never seen this. I think I've seen a lot of wrestling. I've never seen the core power. Like, you see the muscle guys forever, right? Muscle guys come and go in the business forever. But their core power, where they're not body guys, they're just core strength guys, and the moves are very unorthodox. Like, I haven't seen anything quite like what they do. But it gets the crowd. I was wondering how the WWE like the main roster crowd would take to them. Like NXT, it's fine. Everything's over. Everything's the greatest of all time in NXT. But that little crowd, in that little bandbox. But when I see the main roster crowd, when they go and they wrestle, it's like they're into it. These different moves that I haven't seen before. It's very, very unique. I like it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think a little Claudio Castagnoli-ish.
Sure.
You know, where it's kind of unorthodox. I mean, you can tell he's strong. He's not the biggest of guys, but he's still pretty big. But it's more about what you do with the core. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Still plenty of time before WrestleMania. Maybe they add more matches. We're also counting down to Dynasty. And, you know, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this on social media, make sure you check us out on YouTube, comment, subscribe, youtube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. You can always go back, check out all the little videos that we do there. And then next week, excited about this one. Becky Lynch joins the show. Maybe you've heard about her memoir that's out, The Man, Not Your Average Girl.
Available. Your average girl, yeah.
Not your average girl. Available whenever, wherever books are sold. So she's going to be on here talking about that, talking about so many other things. So excited to have Becky Lynch join the program next week as we get closer and closer to her match at WrestleMania with Rhea Ripley. Can't wait for it again next week, man. We had a action-packed wrestling week. I'm sure we're going to have another action-packed wrestling week. One thing's for sure. We're going to talk about it right here